Hello and welcome to this special fireside chat with Dr. Raghuram Rajan, the Governor of the Reserve Bank of India. I say fireside chat only because he's sitting by a country whose economy, especially its inflation rate, is on fire. So not the typical fireside chat. Many have described the decision to make Dr. Rajan the RBI Governor as the best decision this government has made in the last 5 years. Frankly, that's not saying much, and I don't think he'd be very happy with it. It reminds me of a time when we used to do The World This Week, and people used to tell us, it was a show on Doordarshan, they used to say, it's the best thing on Doordarshan. And then they'd add, but Doordarshan ain't too good, is it? So it's a kind of backhanded compliment. But if you ask me, and if you read the reviews, I think by global standards, it was a brilliant decision. Some of the reviews, in fact, that I've read about the appointment as RBI Governor of Dr. Rajan said that, oh God, I wish he had been made the chairman of the US Federal Reserve. I wonder which he would have preferred, given the situation right now. But overall, I'll just start with one anecdote about Dr. Rajan. 3 years before the crash of 2008-2009, he made a speech at a very public, important gathering. And he warned the world that a financial crisis was about to happen. And the great economists, Larry Summers, and many others, said he was not right. In fact, Larry Summers called him a Luddite. Pretty strong words. But in the end, Larry Summers was wrong. Dr. Rajan was right. And if they had listened to him and done something, some of the pain could have been avoided. But now they do listen to Dr. Rajan. That's a true story, right? He did call you a Luddite.
Well, yeah. He did call me a Luddite. And it was because he thought I was saying, let's do away with modern finance, let's go back to the boring banks. And so he thought I was going to reverse progress and suggested that...
but he didn't listen to the underlying... You weren't against... You didn't want to go back.
Well, yes, I didn't want to go back, but I wanted to make better what... I wanted to curb the risk-taking, which I thought was excessive. We needed to control risk in the modern financial system. And I in no way was advocating a return to boring monopolistic banks.
Of course not, yeah.
However, I mean, to some extent, even then I sympathized with where he was coming from, which is that, regulators all the time are faced with loonies saying the world is coming to an end, watch this or watch that.
Yeah.
And even today, people will say there are housing booms, there are, prices are going through the roof, there's a bubble in India.
But that's being very modest on your part, because there were not too many who so accurately and specifically pointed to the financial crisis and why it was going to happen. So if you saw Larry Summers right now sitting here, what would you say to him?
No, Larry and I have talked about it.
What did he say?
He's been very, very
contrite.
Look, he recognizes that perhaps a lot of people, including him, were oversold on the benefits.
Larry Summers recognizes he might have been wrong.
I think a lot of people thought that the markets would take care of themselves, that people in markets were responsible adults, and that they had the right incentives. They were right about the responsible adults. They were right about these are the smartest guys on the planet. Where they were wrong is that these guys had the right incentives, and I think that they've recognized, and I think they'll try to make sure it doesn't happen.
You know the story about the Queen of England going to
Yes.
LSE and looking at all these great economists and said, why couldn't one of you forecast that what was this crisis that is surrounding us? And everybody looked a little sheepish. Now you could have stood there and said, talk to me.
Yes and no. I mean,
you're being too modest.
No, I'm not being modest. Look, a lot of dealing with a crisis is also about predicting the timing.
Right.
You can see the
But
forces
you were
at
pretty
work.
close.
Yeah, but Bob Shiller, for example, was predicting a housing crash. He just won the Nobel Prize for all his work. But There were others, but the key, of course, is to get it right, get the timing right. And you can see the forces. I mean, in any place you can see the forces, but...
Well, I'm going to come to what you're seeing for India. I'd just like to divide this chat into two parts. First part, what's the problem? Second part, what's the solution? And there is a third part, which he doesn't even know about. It's the surprise part. So the problem. Let's just take a look at India's inflation. Basically, for 28 years, our inflation rate was way below other emerging markets. Then suddenly, in the last 5 years, we are right about 130th, 140th. We're in the bottom quartile. Our inflation rate is way higher than most emerging markets, most significant emerging markets. What went wrong?
Well, I think if you had to pick one source of our inflation, it would be food. And the question is, why have food prices skyrocketed? But I think focusing only on food would be problematic, because it's not just food. Food is part of it, but services have been increasing at high rates also, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's housing services. So we do have an inflation problem, and it comes partly because our population is demanding more food, more services, and of course part of the answer is we haven't been able to supply it at the rate that the demand has been increasing. And the key issue is, why are we not able to supply it at that same rate? And of course there we come into a variety of constraints on production that we have to alleviate.
A lot of people say that, and I've studied this as well, the terms of trade went against agriculture for about 20 years, right up to 5 years ago. And it was time for the terms of trade to go back to favor the farmer. He's suffered for 20 years. And if you talk to many farmers now, they're very happy.
Absolutely.
Prices have gone up, their land values have gone up, they're making money, their kids are going to school for the first time. So this worry about food inflation is an urban phenomenon to some extent, because farmers, a lot of them have gained from that, haven't they?
No, absolutely. So I'm not saying this is an unmitigated evil in any way. Clearly there's been a change in terms of trade, to some extent pushed by the government in terms of minimum support prices increasing. But it's also spread, the inflation from all that has spread beyond food to wages. Remember, many of our workers are at subsistence levels. When food prices increase, their wages increase. But wages at the bottom then pushes wages up elsewhere. So across the board, you've seen wage inflation, for example, in rural areas, till recently was growing at a very high rate. And that feeds into every other service. Where does construction labor come from? From the rural areas. So it's fed through the economy. Now, clearly, people have benefited. But equally clearly, inflationary expectations are high now. And if in the long run we think the poorest of the poor are affected by high inflation, but also decision making becomes more difficult, your savings, you're not willing to save in financial assets because it gets eroded. All those reasons suggest we need to bring inflation down. And that means we have to take a tough stance.
So you must have read the advice to you that be a Paul Volcker. Go and smash inflation, smash inflationary expectations. Doesn't matter if you go into a recession, because in the end you'll have the foundation to have a great rebound. So are you a Paul Volcker Indian version?
No, I think people have fairly dramatic views of what needs to be done. You have to be careful. Can we afford 18% interest rates today? And the answer is we have a weak economy. Yes. We have a weak corporate sector. Some of it is highly levered. And you have to be mindful of all that the patient may not survive the medicine.
Right.
So you have to be careful that your rate of disinflation matches the health of the economy. So we are taking measured steps. Of course, there is a point at which you have to act more aggressively. At this point, we think we are as aggressive as we need be, given our estimates of already the weak economy and the fact that causes prices to weaken, and that's in the right direction. So we think interest rates are about where they should be, but we'll monitor the economy carefully. The message we want to send is we will be vigilant, and we are trying to bring this inflationary, high inflationary period to an end.
Is there I know it's difficult for you to answer this, is there a mandate from the overall government saying elections are coming up in 6 months or 200 days or 198 days now, do anything but do not ignore inflation? Is there a mandate overall because of elections?
No, I think that there's no mandate because of elections. I think the general sense in government and in the Reserve Bank is we have two goals. We have to ensure relatively low inflation because that hurts everybody, but also
except the farmers. They may be
right now, not the farmers, but remember, minimum support prices have been raised only by a fraction of the rate at which they were raised in the past. Right. And so at some point, it will stabilize and they will start getting hurt by inflation. Already, as I said, rural wages are not growing any faster than inflation and maybe coming down even more. Inflation is going to start hurting in real terms, even in rural areas, if we don't bring it down.
So you're not Paul Volcker, but you're an inflation hawk. That you've denied, right?
These terms get bandied around. I mean, the truth is, the best way we can support growth at the Reserve Bank are really two. One, which is consistent with central banks everywhere, bring down inflation to a level where the ordinary person doesn't have to worry about it every day, right. And decisions can be made about investment, about savings, right. without these kinds of problems. I mean, take one problem inflation is causing. Manufactured goods, they're not seeing high inflation.
No. The manufactured goods are 2%,
yeah,
3%.
Exactly. So for them, if I set the interest rate at 10%, they're seeing a huge interest rate. They're saying this is killing us. Yeah. On the other hand, if you look at the saver, he's saying 10% is not enough. You're inflating away because I have to pay for my consumption goods at 11, 12% a year. The point here is...
He just goes into assets or gold or something.
Exactly. And so savings rates in the country fall. Net effect, we go borrow from outside to finance our investment. The point is that inflation is hurting us, creating distortions. We need to bring it down so the manufacturer sees the same inflation rate as the consumer, right. And that interest rate brings them together. Yeah. That is why...
Actually, there's huge disparity. I think if you look at the CPI right now, the inflation rate overall is 9.8, 10%.
9.8, yeah.
And, but manufacturing is about 2%.
Exactly, 2.1.
But food is 18%.
Exactly.
So that's such a different, I mean, inflation,
right.
You've got a real tricky problem.
Right, the variability starts killing
sectors,
you. Exactly.
Not only over time, but across sectionally.
Right. Now, some of the variability is good because it takes resources towards the areas which are high inflation. If you look at the elements of food which have been increasing in price in the past, you're seeing resources move towards that, more production being created. For example, poultry, for example, milk. There has been more production, and some of those inflation rates have stabilized. But you want to do it in a better way than massive rates of inflation causing.
And it's not a planned distribution or redistribution of your production.
Exactly.
But one thing which I don't believe in, but I just would love to know your views. The general belief in India is that food prices, inflation in food is caused by hoarders. Mm. Do you believe that?
I mean, some element of timing there could be. I have onions. I'd rather if I think the price is going up, I hold it from the market. But as a general explanation, I don't think it works. I think at particular points in time, and of course, what happens is, once prices go up, then you have people planting more, onions and this and that. As you know from your days in the, well, I shouldn't say days as an economist. You're an economist, and you know that there's a hog cycle. You see prices going up, suddenly you create more hogs, right. And suddenly there's a glut of hogs.
Exactly.
So I don't think speculation, hoarding. I think certain periods, certain points in time, maybe there's certain cause to believe that.
But it's not a
general explanation
for
inflation.
Excuse.
Yes.
But there is the worry that in this kind of skewed situation where manufacturing is 2% and food is 18%, What role can the RBI do to control 18% inflation in food, particularly say onions? What can you do? That's another area.
Yeah.
Just import or increase supply, or you know.
We can't control onion prices.
You can't.
Not in the short run.
Yeah.
In the longer run, I think what we have to do is bring down people's expectations of inflation, and then give the onion farmer less incentive to raise onion prices when he's selling it on the market. Reduce his cost increases so that he feels comfortable selling it at a lower price. I mean, the point is that inflation gets embedded, and to start reversing it is a hard process, but it is a necessary process, and for that there is some amount of pain which has to be experienced by the economy. Disinflation is not necessarily pain-free. I'm hoping that the slow growth we have already is part of the pain we are incurring in order to get the disinflationary process working, and there's only a limited amount of pain we need in addition.
But you don't want to step on the brake so hard that the passengers fly through the windscreen.
Absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
the key point of how you do it.
I mean, we are a poor economy. You don't want to step so hard that you have business failures, you have people, massive unemployment. That would be problematic in its own right. So it's a measured process, and I'm hopeful that with the bountiful harvest we will get some benefit.
Great to have a good monsoon this year.
It comes at the right time.
Just spot on. I mean, when inflation is at the highest, a big monsoon, a good monsoon. One issue, just like your views on, every country in the world, let's have a look at, has declared a target inflation rate. They said this is what we are comfortable with, that or below. For example, Brazil says 4.5, China says 3.5% inflation, Indonesia 4.5, and Turkey 5. But India stands out as, we don't know what our target is, where we say, look, this is what we're targeting, and let the world know this is what we're targeting, and we'll try and achieve that. What would your target? I know that the indices in India are not quite right yet. The wholesale price index has got problem, no services in it. CPI is still to be refined, and I think you're doing quite a lot of work on both these indices. But with a proper index, what would be your target inflation rate?
Well, I think with the wholesale price index, we would say 5%.
5%.
It's a little higher than some other countries, but we're early days in terms of sticking and hitting the target and sticking to it. So
that's not bad for a growing economy.
Absolutely, and for a poor economy where the processes are less well established. As far as the CPI goes, we have to get more comfortable with the series, what it really means, how it moves over time, before we can, put a target in stone.
I have one request. When I was with the government for the short period, I worked on deseasonalizing all our indices, because India is much more seasonal than other countries because of the monsoon, harvests, etc. Can't we deseasonalize this? Year on year is a very inaccurate figure. It doesn't tell you the latest inflation pressures.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. The key, of course, is trying to explain it to the public. Because the public has got...
publish only deseasonalized. That's what everybody does. This is the inflation rate. You don't go 1 year ago, it was,
Right. But that goes to my first point. We need to understand the dynamics of this CPI inflation better so we can deseasonize in a better way. Right. But you're right, we should be looking at the momentum of inflation rather than what happened last year, where are we this year.
It doesn't tell you latest movements, actually.
Absolutely.